Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2022 New Jersey Film Festival Filmmaker Q&A series. We'll be actively talking to a number of the filmmakers to talk about their film before the screenings as a perk for those who are only able to watch our movie online. The 2022 Fall New Jersey Film Festival will be a hybrid festival, and we'll be having screenings all day on the day of their screening, and we'll be talking to the Little Satchmo director, John Alexander, in a few seconds. But the screening of his film will be on Sunday, September 18th. So you can start watching it at 12:01 in the morning, and you have 24 hours to watch it once you start watching. So if on the 18th you want to watch it at 10:45 in the evening and you get a little sleepy and you can't finish the film, you have 24 hours to finish it, so you can finish it into Monday. So if you would like, and a number of our patrons have done this, they've watched the film during the day online, and then they've come in the evening. There'll be an in-person screening at 7 p.m. and there'll be additional incentive to come because the subject of Little Satchmo will be present doing a Q&A, and I'll let John mention that when we start talking. The film festival will be taking place from September 9th to October 16th on select Fridays, Saturday, and Sundays. Many of the screenings will have that in-person screening at 7 p.m. 2 or 3 of them, 4 or 5 of them, I think, are only online. The university has allowed us to do in-person screenings when the filmmaker or the subject is available. And so that's the way that it's been set up this fall. Anyway, welcome, John Alexander, director of Little Satchmo. You're based in Massachusetts?
Thanks so much, Al, for having us, having me. I am actually based in Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, one of my favorite cities. It's a great place.
It is a great place, but I went to school in the Boston area and am originally from Los Angeles. So I have all corners of the country covered.
Very cool, very cool. So tell us a little bit about Little Satchmo.
Yeah, Little Satchmo, first of all, project very near and dear to my heart, feature documentary about the secret daughter of jazz icon Louis Armstrong, or Louis Daniel Armstrong, as he is formally known. But it is a PBS documentary, PBS made for PBS and PBS in style, but it's great to have it being screened in both in person and online in New Jersey. And it is a first-person account, essentially, of what it was like for Sharon, the main subject, to grow up and live her life as the only daughter of arguably one of the most famous Americans of all time, her dad, Louis Armstrong. And she had to keep this relationship entirely hidden and entirely concealed from the public eye because it was outside of marriage, and the pressures of keeping his star status as a Black performer and just a performer in that era ran strong. So they had a very close relationship. They kept it all secret. Sharon harbored it for decades before coming out with a first-person memoir, which was published and which was written up in the New York Times and the London Telegraph. And but she harbored that secret for, I believe, over 40 years or over 50 years, really, if you include the up until coming out with the film. So we used her memoir to adapt her story into a feature doc with producer Leah Umberger and producer JC Guest. And personally, I'm just so glad that the project came to me, because it was such a wonderful collaboration between Sharon and myself, and a real opportunity to expose a story that had been basically swept under the rug, or hear a voice which had been silenced. And so many people relate to this story. So many people have similar secrets in their families. I mean, it's almost more common than not. What's unusual is the fact that this happened in so close to the public eye. I mean, Louis Armstrong was traveling all over the world and was an enormous star in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or 50s and 60s, really. And but somehow they managed to keep it an open secret. His band members knew, people in the inner circles knew Sharon, and they knew that he loved her, and they had a relationship, and he supported her his whole life. But the public couldn't find out about it. So Little Satchmo is the opportunity to learn about the secret side of an American icon.
Yes, and I think it does show that it's a kind of labor of love. But how did you come to the project? I mean, what was the connection? How did it come to be?
Yeah, so thankfully, producer Leah Umberger kind of helmed the whole project, decided that Sharon's story needed to be um, adapted into a film, essentially. Once Leah had read the memoir, she decided that this would make a great documentary, and she had always wanted to produce a documentary.
Hmm.
Leah was a fan of my previous work, This Is Love, which was another documentary. It's a soul music documentary, very different in style, but it played a lot of film festivals, reached a lot of people. It's a crowd pleaser, and if I do say so. And she actually, this producer Leah, who's wonderful, programmed a screening of This Is Love in Florida, which is where the main subject of Little Satchmo, Sharon, is
Mm.
based. And she kind of connected the dots. And once she had me down in Florida to do a Q&A, this is pre-pandemic.
Right.
I did a Q&A. It was great. Leah said, I know what your next project's going to be. The secret daughter of Louis Armstrong is here in Florida. And it's, people always are having ideas and saying things after screenings, and you never quite know. But this one really stuck. And I was like intrigued. First of all, I was skeptical. What do you mean Louis Armstrong had a daughter? Because we all kind of claim him as as if he's a relative of our own. But so then I read Sharon's memoir. Leah sent me her memoir, and I read it in one sitting. It was just, totally floored me. I couldn't believe that this was true. I mean, that this really existed, and this had persisted for so long as a secret. I've just found that a physical anomaly. I mean, how is that even possible when he was so scrutinized by public eye and all other facets of his performing? So I was intrigued, and then I spoke with Sharon on the phone, and then I heard her voice, on the phone, and it was this just liquid, gorgeous voice. Sounded, reminiscent of her father's, distinctive but reminiscent, and a great New York accent.
Mm.
And I thought to myself, this is going to be great. If she can say first person her account and her story, this would be really impactful emotionally. The emotional impact would be strong, being first person. So I asked her right then and there, would you be willing or interested in narrating this film? Basically a transcript or an edit of your memoir. And she said she's always wanted to be a voiceover actor, a voiceover performer. So perfect. It was a match made in heaven. So we really started moving forward right away, and then that's kind of how the project came to be. And then it was basically about the span of a year, all in during the pandemic. I mean, in 2020 we went into production, filmed a bit with Sharon, distanced and masked, and pre-vaccine, but we made it through safely, and we also did a lot of remote voiceover recording. So we send files over. I mean, the internet and technology has really made it possible where we could do a lot, even in these challenging times. But that's how the project came to be. And then we got it completed. It went to PBS. Had given us a letter of interest, and then it was basically picked up for the season premiere of Real South, PBS Real South, which then syndicated nationally, and we have, I'm not sure what I'm at liberty to say, but we do have international plans being cooked up as well. So
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to pay the bills, because it's not cheap, especially during the pandemic, to do a film. There's so many. I mean, just talking to our lawyer, who's an entertainment lawyer for a number of famous documentarians like Barbara Koppel and others, and all of the kind of rigmarole you have to go through just in terms of liability issues when you're filming during the pandemic, just threw another wrench into the machinery. So I'm really, it's amazing that you were able to get it in the can and have it out there. And we look forward to screening it to our audience. I wanted to share to you, I think I mentioned it to Leah, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but we have in our general area, the hidden daughter of Dizzy Gillespie.
Mhm.
who also was in a similar situation, who could not say anything about that she was the illegitimate child of Dizzy Gillespie until after he passed away. And the reason I found out about this was because we showed a film about her husband, who tragically passed away in a plane crash as he was on his way to the Buffalo Symphony. He was a jazz guitarist. And Jeannie Bryson's film, and Jeannie Bryson is the daughter of Dizzy Gillespie. So it reminded me, your story reminded me a lot of hers, where, I mean, Sharon's story reminded me a lot of hers, where they were not able to kind of say publicly that they had a connection. What was I think the film mentions it, but the way that Sharon decided to go public, were there any barriers to that? I mean, did she have to wait until he passed away in the 70s? So it's 20 years later. What was the
Sure,
nudge that pushed her to go public?
sure, sure. I think it would probably be a question best answered by Sharon, but
Yeah,
I can take the liberty of saying I think the barriers were it was layers of barriers. I mean, first of all, she didn't even I mean, if you're really to roll back the tape when she was a child, she first of all, she didn't even realize she was a secret. I mean, she didn't it wasn't like she was told, "Oh, keep this secret." That was her dad. She didn't find out that her dad actually even had a public life until she saw him on the Johnny Carson show,
yeah,
until she saw him on television on the Johnny Carson show talking about his wife and his public life. And Sharon sitting at the television as a 10-year-old
mm,
thinking, what is he talking about? I'm his life. What is this other life? But it turns out that, it was all inverted in her world. So there were so many layers of barriers. And I think one of the final barriers that before she actually came out with it was I think it was the stronghold that her mother had, that Lewis's mistress of over 20 years, is Sharon's mother, had of of wanting to protect him essentially. So in that way, it wouldn't have been appropriate to come out with this prior to his passing. But
right.
then even after he died, as you said, it was decades before she came out. And I think that was I believe that was sort of residual, um, holding of Sharon's mother of this fantasy and
Mm,
of protecting kind of his legacy still. But after a certain point, when Sharon uh, unearthed essentially that she had been excised from his all public record, in all things legal and
right,
financial. Um, Not that it was ever really about that for her mother. I mean, it really was a love story rather than a gold digging one,
right,
But
right.
but that what a low blow it was to find out she literally had been crossed
Expunged.
out. Yes, yes. So I think at that point Sharon sort of pitched it to her mother. What if we come out and sort of start talking about some of these things that happened?
Mm,
Um, and at that point, when Sharon was over 50 years old, um, her mother said, "Okay, let's go for it." And then Sharon started penning the memoir, which was
right.
been published. So yeah, it was so many barriers. I mean, it was almost more barriers than only now is she kind of coming forward and breaking through those barriers and experiencing kind of her honest freedom. So it's very recent in a way that the barriers have been the persistent thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, fascinating to me.
And the fact that Louis Armstrong was married 4 times, while I was watching your documentary, I thought, gosh, I wonder if there are other mistresses as well.
You
And
know,
that's a question for Sharon for sure when she comes. And Sharon will be at our screening, fingers crossed, on September 18th. Yes, your film is playing on Sunday, September 18th, all day on the internet. And I'll show folks how to do that in a few minutes. But and then at 7 p.m., we have a live screening at Rutgers University in our state-of-the-art facility, Voorhees Hall. And Sharon will hopefully be there and take questions from the audience. So that's when I would definitely ask her if she, ever wondered if there were other people in that situation. Like,
right. It's definitely crossed my mind, with the film coming out on television and things, that we sort of, well, we see who else comes up with
Comes
woodwork. And
forward. Yeah, yeah.
but you know, I sort of doubt it. I sort of, I mean, Sharon really is his only documented child.
Mm.
Uh, doesn't mean there aren't more out there.
Right, right. Because he didn't have any children with Lucille, which was his quote unquote official married.
Exactly. And I mean, it was really even, there were a lot of rumors and a lot of record that people people wondered if he was impotent because he was promiscuous or had, you know, many wives and
Right, right.
traveling around. However, there was never any trace of children. He adopted his cousin in, or his family adopted his cousin in New Orleans, and that was kind of a fabled story of his upbringing. But it kind of shows you how there really weren't any kids around except for his cousin Clarence. So
But he did provide for Sweets. I mean, Sharon's mom is known as Sweets. I like that. I like that nickname.
yeah, I like that too. Yes, exactly. He provided for her his entire life, actually. I mean, up until his death, he supported Sweets, Sharon's mother, and Sharon sent, you know, monthly checks, cash, and bought her a house, bought them a home, put Sharon through college, um, variety of other things, you know, music lessons, would send her tickets to the theater, keep her. It was upper society type culture that he was making sure that she got, and very much in a kind of New York white world at the era. But
Yeah.
you know, she was right there. She was at Broadway openings, and she was supported. However, when he passed and his management was in control of all of these dealings, um, it was basically a hard line was drawn, and that support was cut off. I mean, whatever bonds or monies were left kind of would dwindle, and you know, what she saw was what she got. That was it. When he was alive, she was supported, not afterwards. And you know, it would be interesting to know, not that we ever will, what Louis Armstrong's desires would have been. How disappointed or not would he have been to know that fact, that after he passed, you know, she was no longer supported, because I believe his management, you know, made a lot of those important decisions.
And Lucille as well.
And Lucille,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
who is essentially the executor, you know, of his estate
Right.
and manager. So
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it was pretty
There was no
stacked.
love lost there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and they were very aware of each other, by the way. You know, Lewis's wife,
Mm.
Lucille, knew Sweets, knew Sharon. They would show up at the same gigs and kind of awkwardly avoid each other, from
Mm.
what I understand.
Mm.
If Sharon and Sweet sat in the first row, but Lucille came in, oh, off we go. Okay, time
Mhm.
to go to the
Right.
back, time to go backstage, something like that. So, um, tricky dynamics, and again, not, you know, common. I mean, this is all over the place. It's not like it's a rare story, which is actually, I think, one of its strengths. I mean, everybody, whether we want to admit it or not, has close ties that are similar to this kind of thing.
Mm.
um but to me, was just so amazing is that this was happening literally with the number one star at the time, and they kept it out of public view, despite how important it was to him.
Yeah, successfully during his lifetime. Nobody knew. I mean, people knew, but it was never leaked to the press or anything like that.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, folks, let me just share screen so I can show people how to purchase tickets. And come back. Thank you. All right. So share. I should do it this way, I guess. Folks normally would go to our website, which is njfilmfest.com. And this is the picture of what Voorhees Hall looks like in the background. But if you just kind of scroll down or hit the current events side button, it'll bring you to this link, which you should press on, because that's really where our website is for the festival. As we are doing it as a hybrid, that means that we're going to be using Eventive, who are the masters of doing streaming for festivals during the pandemic. And we have no technical issues with them. And they protect the product of the filmmakers from, you know, piracy and things like that, that we really like, because I'm a filmmaker and we're a filmmakers film festival. We go out of our way to protect the work and to promote it, and to share the wonderful humanist films that we we champion at our festival. And so anyway, you come to this link, and here's the little Satchmo link, and there's a nice photograph of Sharon. I really like that one. And so you would just push the button and you'll get all sorts of information about the film when it's playing, and you can hit the pre-order button to purchase tickets. You want to get more information about the festival, there's the general welcome page, and all the 3 or 4 buttons that are in red lead you to other parts of the web page, but general information's here. There's directions onto the live site and parking and all that stuff. But if you would like to get a textual version of the schedule that's very linear, you can get information about little Satchmo here. I actually realized it says Clearwater, Florida, but that must be Leah's address.
That is that's fine. That's Leah's address. That's where the movie lives. You know.
Yes, I got you. Very cool. And so the film guide is also something you can click. And then there's also, we use the posters, so you can click on little Satchmo and get more information about the film that way. And I guess there's one more button you can click, which is the buy access pass. A pass is $100 for everything that we're showing. And we're showing over 20 something movies. 18 of them are in competition for best of festival prizes. And the audience is part of that process too. And if you just want to see one movie, all you have to do is pay $15 and you get to see it online and in person. In fact, we have a number of people that watch the movie during the day, and if they like it, they come again to watch it and hang out with the filmmaker, or in this case, they would be able to ask Sharon questions directly, and they get to see it on our very big screen and nice sound system. So the program again is taking place. Little Satchmo will be on Sunday, September 18th, online for 24 hours. Let's say you start watching at 10 p.m. on that day, and you get a little sleepy and you want to finish it. You have 24 hours to complete the viewing. So you'll have 10 o'clock till 10 o'clock that Monday evening to finish it. So you have 24 hours to start watching, and then you have another 24 hours to finish watching. And the in-person screening is at 7 p.m. and hope you will join us. I want to say thanks to John Alexander for doing this Q&A with us. And I want to say thank you to Leah Umberger as well. She's been very helpful, as well as the other partners that you have. We look forward to sharing the film with our audience. And I want to thank you again for doing this Q&A.
Thank you so much, Al. My pleasure.